If you live in California, you've probably felt an earthquake or two over the years. The reason, of course, are the many faults running through Southern California. And like Fukushima, California also has nuclear reactors along our coastline. Diablo Canyon is the state's last operating nuclear power plant in Northern California. And even though San Onofre nuclear plant is shut down, nuclear fuel will remain on site for decades. Southern California Edison manages San Onofre and offers updates through scheduled public meetings. My guests are UC San Diego energy expert David Victor, who chairs the public panel meetings, and Rochelle Becker with the Alliance for Nuclear Responsibility. And David, what are some of the key lessons we've learned from the Fukushima disaster that we can apply here in California?
Yeah, I think there's a tendency to focus on the technical lessons, but in my mind, what's really important is independence and transparency. Japanese regulatory system was not very independent and not very transparent, and so that allowed regulators and the people who ran the reactor to really not check on each other, and that really contributed fundamentally to where the reactor was sited and the way it was operated.
How about you, Rochelle? What would you say are the biggest takeaways?
I think the biggest takeaways is that we have to be more careful and we have to be more open with the public. I agree with David that transparency is a big issue. I don't think we've met those goals in California, but I think we are at least looking at them more carefully now.
And David, the nuclear waste stored at San Onofre will remain there for decades because there's no place else in the United States that can handle it or take it right now. How much nuclear waste is there right now, and how much will be added?
Yeah. So all the waste that's been, all the high-level waste that's been generated from the reactor cores ever is still on site because there's no place to put it. In the end, that means there'll be about 150, 160 canisters full of this waste that will be stored on a pad on the site using two different technologies. And for the foreseeable future, it's going to be there. One of the things we've spent a lot of time in the community engagement panel is trying to develop strategies to put pressure on the federal government to open Yucca Mountain, which is where it could be stored permanently, or maybe more importantly, to develop so-called consolidated interim storage. So places where reactors like San Onofre could send their waste, be stored for a decade or two before a final storage place.
Let me ask Rochelle about the safety of these fuel storage canisters. What are your concerns, or do you have concerns about them?
Well, I think that there have been many concerns brought to the public's attention, and I think that they need to be focused on. Our current concern is the fact that Edison has applied to delete its off-site emergency planning starting in 2019, which means the off-site emergency services will no longer be funded. And we're quite concerned that if something happens, an earthquake, a glitch at the from transferring the cast from the fuel pools to the cast, would cause some sort of public concern, and that public has no place to turn for information.
Yeah,
it's a penny on the dollar, so I think we should continue the funding.
Okay, let me get David's response on that. So that program's going to stop, and is something going to take its place?
Well, the program's going to stop. The off-site program's going to stop because the risks are dramatically lower when the plant's not operational. That's the logic that's being followed. In one of our meetings later this year, we're going to spend some time looking again at the emergency plan. We've already looked at it once. And maybe there are things that can be done there to help improve information about what's happening at the plant. But I think the key point is that once a reactor stops operating and the fuel is moved into these casks, the risks go down dramatically.
I see. Rochelle, who is paying for this decommissioning, and do we know how much it costs at this point?
The ratepayers are going to be paying for the decommissioning, and it's not quite clear what it costs. Edison will have to apply for the cost for decommissioning. They have about $4 billion collected. They think it's adequate. We don't believe it's going to be adequate. We don't believe they're going to meet their time schedule. It's been unusual for the industry to meet time schedules and budgets in the past, so we're just trying to learn from
And there's so much to talk about this, but we have to wrap with this. And I want to start with you, David. What do you see as the future of nuclear power here in California?
Well, here in California, I think it's limited. I think we're eventually going to see Diablo Canyon, the last operational reactor, shut. The economics of nuclear power in the United States have taken a turn for the worse because of cheap natural gas. Across the United States, we'll probably see a few more reactors built and existing reactors uprated and extended their lifetime. For me, as somebody who studies the energy business worldwide, what's really interesting about nuclear power is the rapid expansion, especially in Asia, China, Korea, now even in the Persian Gulf.
Sure, and let me get Rochelle, your response on that. Do you agree that nuclear power is leaving California but might be expanding elsewhere?
Well, I think the places that are expanding don't have particularly transparent governments, so the lessons we supposedly learned from Fukushima are not necessarily being applied. I think in the United States it won't happen. I think where they've tried to start new nuclear power plants in the United States, they're passing cost overruns already onto the ratepayers, and they're never receiving a kilowatt of power.
All right, Rochelle Becker and David Victor, thanks so much for the update.
Thank you.
Thank you.